Welcome to another episode of NBA 2K20 Roster Edits with Remember the Great Sports. Today we're going to be covering the all-time Detroit Pistons, who were also the Fort Wayne Pistons, as they were one of the original franchises to join the NBA. So I have some roster additions and subtractions to make. Some of these are probably not going to be the most popular with some of the viewers. So as I mentioned in all my videos, the beauty of NBA 2K games is that you can make the rosters to your liking. These are simply my recommendations. If you don't see somebody that you like in this video, definitely check out the honorable mentions. Maybe I did mention them in the honorable mentions. So let's just jump right into this. Alright, so you have point guard Isiah Thomas. You have Hall of Famer Joe Dumars at shooting guard. You have Grant Hill at small forward. You have another Hall of Famer in Bob Lanier at the starting center position. You have Chauncey Billups as a backup point guard. You have another backup point guard in Dave Bing, who is a Hall of Famer. You have Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman at power forward. You have another Hall of Famer in Dave DeBusschere at power forward and also small forward. You have Jerry Stackhouse at shooting guard, small forward. Ben Wallace at center. Another shooting guard, small forward, and Richard Hamilton. Power forward Blake Griffin. Center Bill Laimbeer. Shooting guard Kelly Tripucka. And Andre Drummond at center. So who are the people that I recommend removing? Alright, so I'm going to work backwards here. And may not be a popular one, but Andre Drummond. And the reason for that is we already have other centers on this team. We obviously have Bob Lanier, but we have Big Ben. But I'm going to add a player that is both a power forward / center type. And of course you have Bill Laimbeer. So I personally enjoy Bill Laimbeer being on my team. He is very important to the Detroit Pistons history, and whenever you have a bench clearing brawl, wouldn't that be cool if you could do that in NBA 2K20? Or in NBA 2K you could have like a brawl. I don't think they're going to do that though. But Bill Laimbeer, definitely an all-time great Piston. Now, the other person that I recommend removing is not Kelly Tripucka, okay? But it is actually Blake Griffin. And the reason for that is Blake Griffin hasn't played all that long with Detroit. When it's all said and done, he may become one of the greatest Detroit Pistons ever, but as of right now, he just doesn't have the years in like some of these other guys. So another person I'm going to delete, and again, may not be the most popular choice, that is Jerry Stackhouse. And I understand that Jerry Stackhouse was one of the key catalysts of the success of the Detroit Pistons in the early 2000s. However, the people that I'm adding to this team, two of them are Hall of Famers, and one of them is most likely going to be a Hall of Famer one day. So those are just my recommendations. Let me show you who I added. Alright, so the starting point guard shouldn't come as a surprise to you, but that's Isiah Thomas. The shooting guard is Hall of Famer Joe Dumars and Grant Hill at the small forward position. I placed Dennis Rodman as the starting power forward. I believe they do list Dave DeBusschere as the starting power forward, but honestly, I enjoy Rodman in my starting lineup more than I do Dave DeBusschere. No offense to Mr. Dave DeBusschere, but Dennis Rodman's a Hall of Famer also, and to have the worm in there as a rebounding specialist is vitally important, I feel, with this Detroit team. Starting center, Bob Lanier. Bob Lanier had some very, very good seasons with Detroit before moving on to the Bucks. Hall of Famer in his own right, and very good starting center. So your backup point guard is Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups, part of the franchise that won the championship in the 2000s. And you're going to see a couple more people from that team on this roster as well. Speaking of that team, Richard Hamilton. And I feel Rip belongs on this roster over Jerry Stackhouse because honestly he's more known as one of the heart and souls of those Detroit franchises that won that championship in the 2000s. Secondly, they play the same position. So one has to go. One or the other is not going to get any minutes, in my opinion. So there's Dave DeBusschere. We put Dave DeBusschere on the roster. I always thought this photo was goofy of Dave DeBusschere. I mean, look at this. You mean to tell me that's the only picture that NBA 2K has of Dave DeBusschere as a Piston? I mean, what is that? There's more ball than there is head on this photo. I mean, just throwing that out there. You guys need to find a new photo for Dave DeBusschere. But Dave DeBusschere, Hall of Famer. He played for the Knicks after he was with the Pistons, and just an all-around great player. This is the first person I add to the roster, and this is Hall of Famer Bailey Howell. And you notice that I list him as a small forward on this team. Well, if you look at his stats, he actually spent the majority of his time with Detroit as a small forward. It wasn't until later that he moved to the Celtics that he primarily played the power forward position. But Bailey Howell is one of those guys that can play either position. Very similar player to Dave DeBusschere, actually. That the fact was that he could rebound the ball, he could throw some points in, all around a great athlete, great defender. So Bailey Howell makes the roster as the backup small forward. Big Ben Wallace is the backup center. He's one of the centers on this team. And defensive specialist, just don't expect a lot of points unless he's under the basket. And God forbid if you get on the free throw line with this guy. That's all I have to say. So Ben Wallace, backup center, great defender to have out there. You can actually see the NBA Finals logo on his jersey there. So part of that championship team. So you can't talk about Wallace without mentioning the other Wallace. And this is the next guy that I added to the team, Rasheed Wallace. For years, Rasheed Wallace has not been on the NBA 2K franchise. Every year, I add him to my all-time team. I hope one day that maybe when he gets in the Hall of Fame, because I still think this guy is a Hall of Fame caliber player, that NBA 2K will figure something out to get him on the game so I don't have to create him every year. So Rasheed Wallace, this is why Blake Griffin goes, and this is also why Andre Drummond goes, because Wallace can play both the power forward and the center position. And he is an excellent scorer. He's an excellent defender. He can even throw a three-pointer in there every now and then. So, Rasheed Wallace. The 12th man on the roster, it's hard to think of a 12th man being ranked 91, but that is Dave Bing. Dave Bing, along with Chauncey Billups and Isiah Thomas, that's a great trio of point guards. The nice thing about Bing is he can also play the shooting guard position as well. So he can play either position at the guard, just like Chauncey Billups. Dave Bing, Hall of Famer, definitely makes the team. Finally, I round out the roster with Bill Laimbeer. Now, I'm going to show you the other two that are on the reserve list, and you can certainly swap these around to your liking. But I moved Kelly Tripucka down to the reserve list, and I also move him to the small forward position. Even though he's listed as a shooting guard on the game, he realistically was a small forward his entire time with Detroit. However, he just doesn't make the cut on the top 13. And the final guy that I add to the team is actually another small forward, and this goes back to the Fort Wayne Pistons. All right, this was one of the premier prolific scorers of the Fort Wayne Pistons era, and that is George Yardley. Yardley, standing at 6'5", played the small forward position. Like I said, very good mid-range player. You could swap him or Bailey Howell out. However, I keep Bailey Howell on the starting side of things and not on the reserve list because Howell can also play the power forward position. So George Yardley, definitely a Hall of Famer. That's why he gets the nod over somebody like Andre Drummond. Not that Drummond's not a great player, but we really don't need Drummond if you're going to keep Lambert. So these are just my recommendations. So who coaches the team? Chuck Daly. Again, the most horrendous picture I could ever find of somebody. I really hate this image of this guy, but it's the best I could do for Chuck Daly. I, again, stress this enough. One of my top wish list things in NBA 2K would be if you could edit your coaches or your coaching staff. So, always crossing my fingers, wishful thinking. So, hopefully you agree with my 4 changes. If not, again, check down in the honorable mentions. I look forward to your comments below. Thanks.